Hi, I'm Kathleen Bade, and here in San Diego, we are interviewing educators and superintendents across the country, and we're lucky enough to have with us Cory McIntyre from the Anoka Hennepin Public School District. Thank you for being here,
Thanks
Cory.
for having me, Kathleen.
Well, every school district has its own flavor, so tell us about your community and your district.
Well, our district's unique. We serve 13 communities, and we have about 250,000 residents that live in our school district. And it covers two counties and about 180 square miles. So, Anoka County and Hennepin County combined into one school district. We're the biggest school district in the state of Minnesota. Most people think about Minneapolis and St. Paul, who were yet one of the biggest comparatively to those districts. So, when you have 13 communities, some small, some big, and 7 high schools, every town in the community has their own feel to it. They still have their hometown feel, their small community feel, and yet we're one large system, right? So we try to kind of be both. We exist as the biggest, and yet we really try to make it feel small in every part of our district.
How do you handle all those different identities and make them feel like they're a part of the same district?
Yeah, that's really a great question. That's a full-time job, right? Because we want those communities to have their identity and still feel like they're a part of a bigger system. So we spend a lot of time, in those communities, making sure the schools, like the high schools, are the hub of their communities, right? That's just kind of how it works. I feel like sometimes the high school principal is more well-known than the mayor of their towns because of the nature of the schools. And we have large high schools, unlike some of the other big communities in the state. So we work really hard to make sure that identity is grounding to each, community that we serve. And we have 5 main high schools, and they seem to be the hub of our district.
As superintendent of the largest school district, what are some of the greatest challenges that you face?
The diversity of our district is wonderful, right? That's what makes us rich and beautiful. We have some schools that have 95% students of color, and we have other buildings in our district that are 20, right? So there's a wide range of demographics in our district, and I think that just makes us unique in that way. So we kind of serve everyone, and that's maybe just the global society that we live in.
You're a reflection of the world
We are,
itself
yeah.
and the U.S. and how we're growing.
Yeah.
Well, you started your career in education as a school psychologist. Does all that knowledge you accrued doing that help you manage this district?
It is. I'm not the normal pathway to a superintendency. Most have been classroom teachers, maybe a school principal. I was a school psychologist, and then I was a special education director. So my whole career has been around how to meet unmet needs. It has served me well in this role because we're trying to do better. We're trying to do better with academic outcomes. We're trying to do better with just wellness in general. Solving those problems, that's kind of just what I've done my whole career.
Have you launched any initiatives to specifically address like mental health or some of those issues that you just brought up?
Yeah. Coming out of the pandemic, I think we saw so many needs not being met. As I talk with students in our high schools, they still talk about feeling isolated. So we've worked really hard to, our theme this year is the power of purpose. And how do we have our staff talk about why they do what they do? We have a lot of staff shortages right now. We have 8,000 employees in our school district, right? And we have probably 300 openings at any given point in time right now. It's just the reality of any industry. So we talk about, well, yes, we're shorthanded, but why are we here? And what is your why? Stay centered on why we show up for kids every day. And it only takes one caring adult. That's what I remind myself of every day is why am I here? And how do I help people stay focused on our core purpose?
In terms of strides you've made as a superintendent or accomplishments, what are you most proud of at this point?
Well, there's a number of things. When I go to our buildings and I see kids connected and they're pursuing things that they really are passionate about, then I know we're doing the right thing, right? So I don't know if you're like me. When I left high school, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do. I changed my mind
Who
many
knows?
times. Right. And I think this generation's going to do that a lot more than we ever did. So how do we give them the skills to change their mind and be ready to be awesome at whatever they want to do, right? So, and they're not scared. They're not scared to change their mind. I have 3 teenage daughters of my own, and they change their mind all the time, and they're not scared of that. I think this generation's going to pick their career around their lifestyle, whereas when we grew up, you put your lifestyle around your career, right? And it's just a different mindset now. So I'm proud of giving our kids choices. I was just at a high school here the other day at a technical school, and they're employable right now. Like they're getting jobs. Their employers are saying, we'll pay for your school, come work for us, whether it's in the trades or, so the traditional college path isn't for everyone anymore. I think kids are open to whatever pathways that come. And then I just encourage them to follow their passion, follow what makes you happy.
And because you have such a large school district with all these different identities in these communities, have you initiated different programs for different communities?
Yeah, we have a partnership, for example, with Anoka Ramsey Community College, and we have another partnership with Anoka Technical College. So our high school kids are right on campus with college kids in those experiences, ready to go, right? So it's real for them. We have specialty high schools, so we have a bioengineering high school. One of our high schools is a science, technology, and arts program-based high school. We have another one that's a Center for Engineering, Math, and Science. So we open all of our high schools up for all kids. They can doesn't matter where you live, you can attend any one of our high schools depending what your interests are. And if you change your mind, you can change your school, right? So families like that too. They like the choice of that. So we're very proud of building out that option, knowing that we have high schools that have 3,000 plus students, but when they get into their specialty track, they're maybe with the same 40 kids their whole school day, and it doesn't feel so big.
Yeah, they can really bond and feel a part of something, which is important. You mentioned your background in special education as well. Share with us what you think the state of special education is right now and some of the challenges and opportunities within that.
I'm laughing and smiling because I'm married to a special education director at another Twin Cities school district. So
you hear a little bit about it.
I do, right? Well, I'm proud of the fact that we are doing so much better at meeting the needs of students, and it's not such a stigma as the way it used to be. So we think about students who have disabilities, think about students with abilities, right? And I think with most districts around the country, we're all inching towards about 20% of our school population is probably receiving some kind of support for a disability. And just the efforts around inclusion, and I'm thinking of our adaptive athletics right now. We have amazing athletic teams that are supporting students with disabilities. So there's a lot of access and things that are going to help them excel in the world, and work opportunities as well. So we have many employers who are wanting to hire and give kids experiences with holding a job and earning a wage and showing their abilities as well. So it's a challenge. Probably the big challenge is finding staff. There's not enough special ed teachers right now, or paraeducators, school psychologists, speech and language pathologists, occupational therapists, all those career paths. How do we recruit more? So we're actually trying to tap into our high school students with, hey, these are career fields for you, and let's grow your own. Right? Let's figure out how to make that a pathway.
I love that idea of filling the gaps that you have by educating your own students to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, tell me a little bit how you're navigating technology, because it's going at such a rapid pace. And now with the introduction of AI and Chat GPT, how are you addressing that?
Well, I think we're trying real hard to, use it as a tool, right? So my belief is, instead of fighting that, we're all going to need to know how to use this as a tool. And I think from an employability standpoint, we're all going to need to be able to use AI in our careers. I don't think it's going to replace jobs, but I think you're going to need to know those skills in your job, right? So we've really, even with my own girls, I see it like they come home and I'm like, how are you using this as a starting point for your learning? How do you become more curious and inquisitive about going deeper in your learning? So there's so much information out there you can access now, but what all of our kids are going to need to have is creativity and innovation. And how do they find new solutions to problems we haven't solved yet? I think we just got to keep leaning into it. It's evolving fast, right? And our kids are not shy about telling us how they use that. When I go do listening sessions and I ask them, they're like, yeah, this is an amazing tool. And I think now that our teachers are learning how to embrace it more, it gets a rich conversation started instead of just facts. And our kids they always tell me, why do I need to know this? And what am I going to do with it? If they can have access to information and we can get to those questions, now they're engaged. But if they don't feel like it's useful, they're not wasting their time. That's just kind of how it's been.
Tell me more about these listening sessions that you have. How often do you do it? And do you recommend that to other superintendents?
Yeah, I've had other colleagues that have done like a superintendent Advisory committee. Well, what I've done is I go to each of these high schools 3 times a year and I bring in about 30 students. So this way I can hear from almost 200 kids instead of this, a number like 25. And I just ask them, what's your lived experience like? How can we do better? And they're not shy. They are very open and honest about, here's what we can do better. Whether it's, I need more time to get between my classes, whether it's, we wish, we serve this in our lunches, or school safety. I always ask too, like, is it safe here for you? Do you feel safe? What can we do to make it safer? They really do want that connection. So I ask, how can we build stronger connections between students and between students and staff? You can't put a price tag on what they tell you, right? So it's just me keeping grounded with them. And then I bring my school board members with so they can hear as well. Some school districts have student board reps, but we go to them in their environment where they feel most comfortable. And we ask them, what classes should we be offering? I love to ask, what's your favorite class and what's a class everybody should take that you maybe didn't love, but what's the class everyone should take, right? So those are...
What is the most popular answer?
Yeah, there's a personal finance class I'm hearing a lot about this year, like how to manage your own money. And for a while, I think we weren't doing a very good job about teaching that. And now I'm hearing, since we added that course, kids are really, like, that's the course that everyone should take.
I think I need to take it.
Me too. Me too. Yeah. And then there's been a class just about how to, interpersonal relations course, but how to get along with each other, especially in a kind of a polarized society that we're in. And the high school kids do talk about, like, there's different groups of kids and how do we just get along better in school. So they're real honest. That's what I love about it. They're just super honest about what they need, and that's super great feedback for us.
What about at the elementary level? What are you seeing, and what are some of the challenges for the younger set?
We have 3 main priorities next year. We've gone years of having maybe 12 things to do, and this year we just boiled it down to 3, and the number 1 is literacy. So we're trying to do better with reading, and we have piloted a Bridge to Read program, and we're seeing great results with that. And we've gone a few years now with not great results. Like, we've been kind of flatlined with moving the needle on our literacy scores. And so we're super excited about that. In Minnesota, there's a new legislation that is called the READ Act, and it's all around the science of reading. Until we do better at reading, if we start there, everything else still fall into place, whether it's our equity work, whether it's our math efforts. So we're really doubling down on literacy, and we have about 1,800 staff members we got to get trained. And our letters program that we're working on, it's a big undertaking, and that's a lot to ask of our staff too. But when we see the results, we finally are seeing now kids happy if they know how to read and they're not struggling so much. That's probably the biggest thing I could talk about right now, is just the literacy part.
And how are you handling this post-pandemic world when it comes to students? Because there was such a gap there for so many, and trying to catch up now.
Yeah. Well, we can't intervene our way out of this. We've really had to rethink how we do whole class instruction, and how do we make sure we are using strategies that keeps kids engaged first, and then a lot of support as well. So like you said, when we came out of the pandemic, there were so many of our students were really behind, and it was a really hard time. So we're just rethinking how we teach reading in all of our core subject areas to our whole class. If 60% of the class is behind, then we're going to rethink how we're even bringing our core instruction to them.
How would you describe your leadership philosophy?
Well, it's changed. It's changed. So when I first started in this job, I felt like I had to prove that I was competent. I knew my stuff. And now it's all about leading with heart. People don't want what's in your head. You can Google those things now, right? Like you talked about with AI, everything's available. So people will follow you if you come with heart, right? And I think as you talk with other superintendents, the leaders that I aspire to model after are the ones who are humble. They're the ones who are willing to be a little vulnerable, tell their story, and really make connection with staff. But my first few years, it was trying to prove my worth, and that they hired the right guy, and I knew things. And now I have a lot of great people on my team that know a lot. My job is to get them on a common purpose and a common direction, and excited and inspired. It shifted for me a little bit. Yeah.
What brought about the change?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess especially our principals, I see how hard they're working in our schools, and they need to be inspired. They want to be inspired. A principal the other day told me like they had kind of lost their why a little bit because it's so much work and they're doing so many things. And it just reminds me that my job's to help people stay centered on why we're here. We're here to serve kids, and everyone's got their own story. We have our own experience growing up and why we do this work, right? And stay centered on that. And that probably keeps you motivated through the hard things that we do, right? So just being real with people, I think, has been the number one reason why I stay, on this job. And there's lots of stuff you can't make up, but you just kind of stay grounded on why we're here and that's for kids, right?
What keeps you inspired when you are facing headwinds like that we see today?
Yeah. Kids are amazing. We were talking about our own kids, and they do things you don't expect. Like they just surprise us all the time. And when I see stories of kids who beat the odds, right? They overcome things that aren't going great for them in their life. That's inspiring to me. And when you see kids do great things, it just reminds me it only takes one adult to be that for them. Like we have lots of kids in our system that have things that aren't going their way, and the more we can keep them centered on being awesome at what they want to be, then we're going to be okay.
When you kind of flip the script, with your listening sessions and you let them do the talking and all of that, do you think it's hard today to be a student?
I think so. It's not what it was when I was in school. It's different now. In the 70s when I grew up, you had to earn respect, right? That was always a thing. Like, I'll give you respect once you've earned it. This generation's like, they expect you to give it immediately. They just give me respect now. But if they feel seen and heard and they feel like they matter, now sky's the limit, right? So I think it's a shift for us to be thinking about making sure every student feels seen, feels heard, and that they feel like they do matter, and give them things that they feel they're going to be really good at, whether it's music, whether it's science, whether it's math. It can be just about anything now. Help them find their purpose, right? So I keep going back to those same themes. And I'm trying to get our staff to be a little more open and vulnerable with our kids now, because that's what they want. They want to feel connected to adults. And our best teachers, I think, are the ones that do open up and they share a little bit about what makes them tick. And instead of like the expert model that I grew up with, it's more of a partnership now, I think. And if you build that connection, and then the magic happens, right?
I mean, we all have a teacher that we remember,
Yeah.
if not one, more than one, that impacted our lives.
When I do listening sessions, I ask that one of my first questions when I go around the room, I ask, what your name and grade, where did you go to elementary school, and who was that one teacher? And just name who that teacher is. And then I go back around and ask why. And it's usually because they took the time to get to know them as a person, right? And once they got to know them as a person, they would run through a wall climb, right, at that point. For me, was Bob Gosspeter, my band director back in high school. He was that teacher that saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. And that's what I want every kid to have that experience, right? So I had a bit of a broken home growing up, and he was that one adult that it was the coaches and my teachers that kind of filled the void. And we can be that. And I tell our students the story of when I had to move in 8th grade when my parents got divorced, and that first day in a brand new school, in a brand new school district, it was the bus driver who opened the door, smiled and said, "Hi, good morning, I'm glad you're here," right? That's all he had to say. He had me, right?
You had me at hello.
Yeah, basically. And that's all it takes, right? And it was the bus driver. So I remind people, those are the little things we can do every day for our kids, and that no one that was the one thing they needed to hear that day, right? So to me, the power of connection and the relationship piece is what we need to start with, and then all the other things do fall into place.
So doing the little things in the largest school district in Minnesota.
Trying to.
When you look ahead to 2024, what's your outlook when it comes to education, and what do you think the opportunities and priorities should be?
Yeah. Well, in Minnesota, we're struggling with the cost of doing business has gone up. So those are the hard realities. So many of our districts are having to make some budget cuts. How do you find opportunity and the silver lining in those things? I think COVID also taught us, you out of necessity, you find new ways of solving problems that you wouldn't have done before, just out of necessity. So I'm hopeful that we can get better results. We're going to do more with less, and I think that's possible. I really do think it's possible. And it comes back to having great people. You know, what drew me to the district was the hard-working mentality that the district has. There's lots of pride in the communities that we serve. There's lots of pride in the district. And when you feel like you're a part of something bigger than yourself, again, the magic happens, right? So I'm hopeful that we can continue to move with that in mind, find ways where we would be more efficient and effective with what we have available to us. And I'm excited about just having our students help us figure that out. So when I talk to kids, what can we do better? Tell us what's working, tell us what's not. And if we just do a better job listening to our students, listening to their families, I think we're going to be, if we can have that kind of a partnership moving forward, then we're going to do awesome things. Yeah.
What is your best advice for other superintendents in terms of what's working for you, what the lessons you've learned along the way in this role?
Oh, I go back to be humble, be willing to be vulnerable with people. And it's hard to be, when you have as many employees that we do, you just have to be real with people. That's what they really want. Like I said earlier, they don't want what's in your mind, they want what's in your heart. And lead with that first. Make connections. Listen, right? It's really be humble and listen to what people think makes the biggest difference, and then try to turn that into action. Right? How do you make those things actionable and tangible? So that's probably my best advice.
And in terms of teachers, they really got put through the ringer and had to do extraordinary things during the pandemic and now coming out of it. What's your best advice on how to support teachers during this time?
They want to feel heard. So what I've learned this year especially is our teachers just want to know you're listening. They want to know that you're paying attention. They know we can't give them everything they would love to have. They would love to have smaller class sizes. They would love to have more tools. And we know we have finite resources, but take the time to listen and understand their reality, right? I also would say, like, our best teachers are the ones that know why they're there. They're there because they have a belief in what they do. They have a belief in the impact they make every day. And it's kind of like what I said, students want to be seen, heard, and feel like they matter. It's true with our staff. And it's not just teachers. It's, when I see our child nutrition workers, and you take a minute to talk to them about what's going well for them and what's hard, when they feel like they've been heard and seen, now they're going to keep going, doing everything they can for our kids each and every day. So I know it sounds simple, but I think it's for all of us when we feel like we're being paid attention to, and that our voice matters. Now I'm going to, be a part of something bigger, right? So that's kind of where my head goes with. Yes, we have a teacher shortage, but I tell them, you work in a great place. Tell all your friends to come work for us, right? Because we're a family, and again, if we can just convey that we're a team and we have the same mission and same purpose in mind, then I think we have a shot.
All right, Cory McIntyre, the power of purpose.
Yeah.
All right, from the Anoka Hennepin Public School District in Minnesota. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Catherine.
Appreciated your insight.
Thank you.